All right, you're welcome again to today's session. And in this session, we are going to be looking at how to actually create reports. Well, we've been talking Power BI for the past couple of days, and we all know that Power BI is a data analysis tool. That's very important. But data analysis is not just about numbers. It's beyond the numbers because what the job of a data analyst is to tell a story with these numbers. And a picture you are going to see is worth 1,000 words. So the aim of creating your report will be to add visualizations to your report. Visualizations are very, 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 very important. So I could just call them visuals for short. But of course, when you hear me say visuals and visualization, I mean the same thing. Okay. And Power BI has got a lot of visuals that you can use to report your data in your semantic model. What these visuals do is they allow you to present key insights and information that you discovered in your data while you were modeling, you were creating measures, and you were transforming. There are things you would have discovered. So, what the visual does is, in quotes, it allows you to paint pictures of your discovery in such a way that, depending on the target you are trying to send this report to, the person will be able to see what you are trying to say at a glance, or at least will be able to appreciate it better than if you had pages upon pages of numbers and text. So the consumer is going to therefore rely on these visuals as a means of understanding your data. So visualization is very, very, very central to your report. Now, you are going to be creating your reports and your visuals in Power BI Desktop. So in Power BI Desktop, each visual is represented by an icon in this pane here. This is the visualization pane, and I'm going to show you in the live environment shortly. Now, here is Power BI. So we see we will be creating our reports in the report view. And the report view has got a number of panes. We see the filters pane, which I'm going to close. We've got the visualizations pane, and of course, we've got the data pane. So let me just show just the visualization pane. And the visualization pane has got a lot of visuals, like you can see. Uh, if you want to know the visual name, you just hover over the visual, and it comes as a screen tip like that. You can see that that's a stacked bar chart. If you hover over another one, you can see the name of the visual. That is a clustered bar chart. So each visual has a representation in that pane there. And the type of visual that is available comes in a lot of categories: charts, maps, tables, cards, matrices, different kinds of visuals. So you want to, first of all, if you want to create a visual, is basic. You want to go to the canvas here, go to the canvas here, and let's say we want to click on the table. I just go ahead and click on table, and we see the visual is available, but it's blank, of course. I can just drag as I want, and I'll come to the data. Of course, your visual is useless without any data. So maybe I want to look for a hierarchy. I want to say I want to see sales by date, for example. I can click on fiscal here, and it's going to, well, give us the fiscal. And then if I want to look at sales, I can go ahead and just select sales. Okay. So if I select sales, it gives me, you can see quickly here, it gives me a means of understanding what's going on, looking at the sales per period. I can look at it quarterly, monthly, yearly, as the case may be. Okay. So what are some of the things we want to bear in mind when we are creating visuals? This was just a quick demonstration here. The first thing you want to take note of when you are talking about visual is the type. You want to look at the type of visual. So you want to look at the type. Why is this important? Now, we might want to use sometimes a combination of visuals in your report. You may want to use cards. You may want to use charts. You may want to use tables. You could want to use slicers. Don't worry if you don't understand anything. We are going to explain it better when we get there. So it is important to use the right type and the right number of visuals on a page. And then you want to size the visual on that page and position the visual in the best possible way. Like you saw what I did here, I can see, resize the visual. I can move the visual wherever I want. Okay. As we move on, we are going to see one of the things you need to know when it comes to positioning your visual, because positioning your visual is very, very important. Data analysis has some art to it. It's not just pure science, it's also art. So apart from the type of visual, another thing you want to take note of is the number. So for visuals, you want to look at the type and the number. You want to consider the number of visuals that you want to place on each report page. I'll quickly say here that a report usually will have multiple pages. Okay. Yeah. So you want to take note of the number of visuals that you want to position on a report page. Sometimes there is that strong temptation that I want to encourage you to resist. And that temptation is putting a lot of visuals on one page. It's a temptation that a lot of the time you want to resist it. Sometimes when you are designing a report, less is more. So you want to take note of that. So it's best in this case to limit the number of visuals that you use on a page. More visuals could sometimes have the opposite effect to what you are trying to achieve. Imagine you want to dress up for an occasion. More clothing usually is going to mean, what is this uncle or auntie trying to do? More colors can also give you the same effect. So you want to keep your visuals, well, to the minimum without losing the message you are trying to send across. Okay, so rather than using multiple visuals, there are other ways you can give information, such as drill through pages or tooltips, for example. Now, another thing you want to take note about visual is the position. How do you want to put your visuals? Now, as you add visuals, you want to move these visuals to specific parts of your page. You want to either make them bigger or smaller to have a better display effect. Now, best practice is place the most important visual on the top left corner of your report. That means what we are trying to say is this. I'll quickly show you something here. Yeah. Now you want to place your visual, no, not this one. You want to place your visual to the top left-hand side of your page. Now that's very important for a number of reasons. Okay, if I am trying to showcase the profitability of a product line, for example, I want to, for instance, put the most important visual here. And I'm going to tell you why. The reason is this. If you are dealing with an audience that they can read and write in the Latin script, which is, of course, almost every English, in fact, most or all English speakers, everyone in North America, every literate person in Africa, everyone in Europe will be reading from top left to bottom right. So that means that instinctively, the person is going to begin to look at your report in the same way he would read or she would read. So they are going to start looking at your report in this direction and in this direction. So what that means is this: the most important aspect of your visual, you want to put it there. That is very, Very, very important. Now, if you want to showcase profitability, like what has happened here now in this report layout, what the person did was, see, showcase a single item card. And a card, like we will see when we get into the lab, just gives you one information as a single visual. So if you are trying to convince maybe a group of shareholders that their money has not gone to waste by giving it to you to invest, then you want to be mindful of how you place that visual to convince them that you are doing the right thing. So positioning is very, very important. Now, apart from positioning, another thing that is important is size. So we've talked about type, number, position. Let's look at size. Now, why is size important? Well, by default, Power BI determines the size of the visual. So once you add a visual, it will just give you the size. And usually, we are going to see, I'll just go ahead and delete this visual here. I'll go ahead and remove it. Okay, so if I select a visual, notice what happens. Power BI takes it to top left, okay, and gives you a default size. Sometimes this size is good, other times this size is not so good. So you can resize. How can you resize? You grab the resizing handles like that. Now, when you are resizing, it's important to note that resizing like this doesn't always work, because you are going to be resizing and putting your visuals out of ratio. Rather, it is best to resize at the angles like that or like that, rather than like this or like this most of the time. Okay, so while the size of your visual will be determined by default in Power BI, Power BI will just create a size for you. You have the ability to resize. Now, another thing you want to take note of is how do your visuals interact. So interaction is also important. Now, the visual that you add to your report will usually interact with one another. And what that means is if you select one visual or select an element in one visual, it's going to update other visuals in relation to your selection. But as you design your report, you have to understand those visual interactions and consider how they can affect the user experience. Don't forget, you are trying to tell a story. No matter how sophisticated or how good you are as a data analyst, if your data analysis does not tell the right story, I dare say that you've not done your work properly. So you have to be thinking of, who am I designing this report for? What are the most important things I want to communicate to that person? That's very, very important. Now, another thing you want to take note of is hierarchy. I don't know how to spell this. Sorry. All right. Now, hierarchies. Now, hierarchies we created in the last class, hierarchies like dates. We group dates into year, half year, quarter, month, and even week. So you want to consider how hierarchies will affect how your data displays. Okay. And you want to also understand the navigation experience. So you can use hierarchies to determine how your visual is going to be located and laid out. That's going to give you some level of control. Okay, now there are different kinds of visuals, different kinds of visuals that we can use. And I'll just give a quick snapshot of the categories of the kinds of visuals we have. This is not a very good example, but we can see that we have different kinds of visuals here. Now, Power BI has a lot of them, a lot of them. So if we come here now, we can see within the visualization pane what kinds of visuals Power BI has. Okay, so like we said, visuals allow you to share pictorial information. Okay, and it allows someone to quickly understand and to retain whatever information you're trying to send across. And they are very important to your reports because they are going to be helping you to report what you intend to report to the appropriate audience and to be able to connect with your audience, especially sending across the kind of information that you planned to send. Okay, so so it's important for you to choose the right kind of visual. Okay, for example, you choose a table visual. That's what it looks like here. That's a table visual here. Okay, if you choose a table visual, let me just quickly create one. I'll just say, for example, I can say, what will I say? I can say profits. I'll choose profit and I can say product, or I'll just say sales. Okay, so we can see here we've got sum of sales and profit. So what tables and matrix allows you to do is it gives you a two-dimensional way of viewing data that is flat. What does this mean? It means that duplicate values will be displayed without necessarily being aggregated. Now, the matrix, on the other hand, I'm just going to change this to a matrix visual. I'll just select it and just select matrix. Okay, so the matrix visual here is similar to the table, as you can see, but it allows you to select one or more components like rows, like columns and values. Okay, and it is, of course, it allows you to cross highlight other visuals on the report page. So tables and metrics are very similar. Okay, we also have other kinds of visuals like bar and column charts. Now, Power BI has lots of it. We have here, if we go and click, we can see a stacked bar chart, a stacked column chart, clustered bar chart, clustered column chart, 100% stacked bar chart. So we see here the first row here gives you all kinds of bar and column charts. So see, so once I just select it, we can quickly see what it does. So if I go ahead and select the next one, it just changes it. I select that, it changes it and all that. Well, let's go ahead and select this. We can see here, we see profit and sum of sales, and all of that. So if we select this, we can actually see this is small. That's why it's very, very minimal. So these kinds of visuals, of course, allow us to do some kinds of things. For example, the stacked format is going to stack information items on top of one another. So if I go ahead and select stacked column chart, we see that it stacks. There's a lighter blue at the bottom and there's a deeper blue at the top. So it stacks information on top of one another. We also have line and area charts. So if I select this and go to, we see here line chart, we see here area chart, we see the stacked area chart and all of that. So if I select this, of course, the data points are not sufficient. So we cannot see any information here. So line and area charts allows you to present trends, different kinds of trends. The basic area chart is based on the line chart, of course, with the difference being that the area under the curve is shaded. Okay, we've got tree maps as well. Maybe I should just go back here and look at this. Yeah, so we have tree maps here. So what do tree maps do? Tree maps display data as a set of nested rectangles, okay, falling into the same category. It's very similar to the pie chart in some way, okay, and it's useful if you want to show attributes by using size and color, okay, and allows you to spot patterns and exceptions. Then you can even have combo charts. So we see here we have a lot of charts. We have bar charts, we have group bar, line chart, stack bar, many, 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 many kinds of charts that we've got here. We can see we've got the line chart in the next line spilling over into the other one. We've got ribbon charts, we've got waterfall charts, we've got funnel charts. Now, while we have a lot of these kinds of charts, sometimes the chart that you have might not be sufficient. As in, there's something you want to do that your chart, that Power BI does not by default have the chart. What are some of those scenarios? There's a kind of chart called a word cloud. For example, you have a chart here, and maybe you are doing sentiment analysis. You have a chart here, and you want to capture all of the words, maybe in a report as a chart. Power BI does not have that by default. So, if that is your scenario, what can you do? Is there anything you can do, or are you stuck there? Does that mean that that is the end of your report writing? The answer to all of your questions there is no, because Power BI allows you to bring in charts from other sources. How would you do that? You come here and see, get more visuals. Okay, it allows you to get more visuals from a place called the app source. Okay, now within the app source, you have different kinds of third parties that have created visuals that have been certified by Microsoft. You can just go there and get the visuals. Not all of those visuals, I believe, are free. Some of them you might have to pay for it. Okay, so you can get those visuals, or if you know how to, you've created a visual and you have it in a file, you can go ahead and import the visual from a file. Okay. Or you could even remove a visual if you wanted to. Okay. So, in getting more visuals from the app source allows you to bring in more visuals as well. Again, if you know how to, you are a programmer, you know how to write R, you can actually come here and put in an R script visual if you know how to write R, or you can also put in a Python visual as well, because those are languages that allows you to visualize. You can go ahead and bring in a script that creates a visual for you. Power BI also allows you to do that. Now, another thing you can do is you can format your visual. Okay, so let me go back to my table right here. You can actually go and format your visual. Now, you've brought in your visual. You don't like the color. You don't like the size of the font. There are so many things you might not like about your visual that Power BI allows you to, of course, to change. So how do you do that? You select this visual, and you see here we have the Format Visual tab in the visualization pane. So if you select it, it gives you a lot of options. Okay, you can select the styles, the grid, the values, the column headers, the totals. You can go to general and you can change the title. You can change the properties. You can format the data. You can change header icons, tooltips, so many things. So Power BI gives you a lot of categories and all of those kinds of things. You can even come and sort, of course, your visual. You can sort by profit. You can sort by sum. You can even do conditional formatting. Okay, so let's not talk too much. These things are sometimes better seen than heard. So let's go ahead and look at what we will be doing here in the demonstration part. So what are we going to demonstrate right now? We are going to be demonstrating how to design a report in Power BI. And that's very important for some of the reasons we've mentioned. And the report we are going to be designing will look like this. This is what our report will look like. All right. Simple, giving us a lot of information at a glance. Okay. So that's what our report will look like. And we are going to go ahead and begin designing that report. Okay. So we have a blank canvas here. And I want to see rename the first page. Just like you would do in Excel, I'll either double click the page name or right click it. And I want to call this page overview. So I just, and bam, our page is renamed. Okay, so we could also right click the page and rename it. Now we want to go ahead and add an image to the page. Okay, so we'll go to insert. All right. And from the insert tab, from inside the elements group, we want to go ahead and click on image. And I'll go ahead and select this. And that's our image there. Okay, so we've added the image, which, by the way, I can resize like that. Okay, now that's a very good idea, specifically if you are designing your report for external consumption. One of the things you want to do is to, of course, mark your territory. All of the aunties in the house know what I mean by marking territory. So you want to mark your territory, and of course, such that if anybody sees it, they know exactly where that is coming from. So that's one thing we want to do, add a logo. Now, another thing we want to do is we want to add a slicer. What is a slicer? A slicer allows us to view our data in different ways. Okay, maybe you have a date slicer. You want to maybe view by, for example, by month, by quarter, by day, as the case may be. So that's the next thing we want to do. I'll go ahead and go to, when you want to add a visual to the canvas, ensure that the visual that is there already is deselected. How will you know? One way is all of the resizing handles will be active if the visual is selected. And to deselect it, you just want to click on a blank area in the canvas and those resizing handles will go away. So I want to go ahead and add a slicer. So I'll go ahead and add slicer. Okay. All right. So I've added a slicer. Now I want to add date year to the hierarchy. I want to add date year here. So with the slicer selected, I'll go ahead and select date and year. Take note, I'm not adding the hierarchy. I just want to add the date and year. Okay, so I'll select that. And we can see now that we have different years. Okay, so we can see we have that. Okay, now this is good. It gives us 5 years, 2008 to 2022. But I want to change the way it looks. I want to make it a drop-down list. And for that, I will need to format that visual. Okay, so I'll ensure that the visual is selected. I'll go to the format your visual pane here, and I'll come to slicer settings. Okay, and we have different kinds of styles. The first style is vertical list, but I want it to be a drop down. So I'll go ahead. I could also select a tile. Let me select a tile for you to see. We can actually have this as a tile. But what I'm interested in is I want it to be a drop-down list. Why do I want a drop-down list? I want to save space because there's something I want to also include under that. Okay, so now I have a drop-down such that if I click on this, we see drop-downs. Okay, that is a space saving mechanism, which you might want to take note of. Okay, so we see that our report is gradually taking shape, and this is what it should look like. Here, that's our logo, that's our slicer, and that's exactly what it looks like. Okay, so now we want to select a specific year. I'll go ahead and click on the drop down and see. See now, the year that is selected is 2020, for example. So we have that year selected. Okay, let's create another slicer. Okay, based on region. So I'll go ahead and click on slicer again, and then we have the slicer, and I want to position the slicer just under this one here, and I want to drag it down right there. Okay, and I want to base this slicer on the region field in the region table. So I'll go to region. Take note, I'm not selecting the hierarchy, and select region. So we see all of our regions there, of course. So I want to leave this one as a list. I don't want to make it a drop down. So we see we have Adventure Walks. We've got a slicer for year. We've got a slicer for region. I like to put some space between the slicer. Yeah, I just put some, yeah, that's just perfect. Okay, so we have our slicer, two slicers there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add more visuals. This time around, I want to add a stacked column chart. So I'll go ahead and select, line and stack column chart. And I want to take it up here. And I want to do something very, very interesting like that. Okay, so remember, we want to create a report that looks like this. So we've done this part of the report. So this is the part of the report we're trying to do. So let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so we've created that. We've added the line and stack column chart visual. Okay, so we want to now add our data to the visual. Okay, so we want to add date and month. So I'll go ahead and select date, month. For example, it appears nothing has happened. So I want to see sales by month. So I'll go ahead and select sales like that. So we see our visual is coming to life gradually. It's coming to life gradually. So we have selected that visual. Okay. So we see here that the fields are assigned to the x-axis and y-axis. So if we come and have our visual selected, we can see we have the x-axis is month, the y-axis is sum of sales. We can see all of that right there. Okay. All right. So so from the data pane again, we want to drag the sales profit margin into the line y-axis. So sales profit margin, I want to drag it into the third axis here, which is the line y-axis. Sorry, I want to. Okay, so sales profit margin. What's going on? Why are you moving faster than your shadow? Yeah. Okay. I'll just drop it here. Okay, so that's it. So we can see our visual coming alive gradually gradually right there. Okay. So lots of things going on here. But we have 11 months. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, we know we have 12 months in a year. So why do we have just 11 data points? Now, the reason is this. By default, Power BI does not show any data point that has no value in it. Okay. So we can actually change that. We can change that, and we are going to do that shortly. Okay, so to do that, we'll come to sum of sales, for example, or sorry, we'll come to month, click down here, and we want to select show item with no data. Because by default, Power BI shows only items that have data. So I'll go ahead and select show item with no data. And we can see that we now have 2020 June showing, but there's no data there. Okay, so gradually things are falling into place, like one of my friends likes to say. Okay, so to add a chart to the page, we'll go ahead and add another chart. We want to go ahead and add a stacked column chart, which is this one. I'll go ahead and select stacked column chart. And I want to, make it a bit small to fill half of the remaining space, like that. Okay, and I want to add the following fields to my x-axis. I want to add region, country. So I'll drag country and region to the x-axis. Okay, and then to the y-axis, I want to add sales and sales. So I'll go ahead and add it to the y-axis. And then to the legend, I want to add product category. Okay, I'll just scroll down so that we'll see the legend. So I'll go to product and category and add to the legend. All right, again, it's beginning to come alive. Okay, it's beginning to come alive. So to deselect, I'll just click a blank area there, and we can see that it is coming alive. Okay, so we want to add another chart. This time we want to add the stacked bar chart. So I'll go ahead and click on stacked bar chart, and it will just fill up the remainder of the space. Okay, and to the x-axis, I want to add product category. And then to the y-axis, I want to add sales and quantity. Sorry? To the y-axis, product category. Where are you? Product category to y-axis. To the x-axis, sales quantity. So let's go to quantity and sales. Yeah, and that is now what our visual looks like. Now we've added the visual, but we don't want to stop there. Let's go ahead and format the visual. So while the visual is selected, I'll go ahead and click on the format pane. Okay. And I want to expand bars. I expand bars. Okay. And after expanding bars, I want to turn on data label. Now, see, data label is off. I want to turn it on. Of course, so we can see now that we have our data being labeled. Okay. And I can now go ahead and save my Power BI file. Okay, so we've designed one page of our visual. Okay, and it looks like what we wanted to do. Now, a report usually will have multiple pages. And if you want to add another page, we'll just go ahead and click on add page.
Please, can I ask a question before you continue?
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
So the labels, I noticed they were coming up earlier already. So when you said add label, I didn't see when they come up or they came up rather.
Okay. Now look at this. Let me zoom this a bit.
Yeah.
Let me zoom this a bit. Now you're going to see that there's a slight difference between this one and this one. And that slight difference is if you look closely in clothing, there's 33K,
Mm-hmm.
but there's none here. Now let me turn off the label.
Okay.
If I come to where is it? This actually is what I turned on before. Okay,
No.
so if I come to data labels, I'll go to here in the format pane. This has to be selected. Yeah, I go to the format pane here. I go to bars
Okay.
and I go to data labels. If I turn it off, notice
Oh,
that those numbers are gone.
okay.
If I turn it on again, notice that those numbers are actually marking the value of each of these
Okay.
bars here, is what we are talking about.
Okay. 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 So it's leveling the bars then. Okay. It's
Yes,
clear
it's
now.
labeling
Thank
the
you.
best, not the axis.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that question. All right. So I want to go to the next page now and we'll design the second page. So I'll go ahead and rename the page. I could have just right clicked the page and selected rename. Okay. And I can give it a name called profit, for example. Okay. So we'll go to the page and this is what we want to design the page to look like. Simple, one slicer for region, and then a table visual here for all of the details like order, sales, cost, profit, and profit margin. That's what we want it to look like. Okay, so we have created the page. We want to first add a slicer. I'm going to be a bit faster here. I'll select slicer. I'll resize our slicer like that. And for the slicer, I want to add just region to the slicer. So I'll go ahead and select region and region. So we have different regions added. Let me just make this. Yeah. So region is the slicer right there. So we could format the slicer to enable the select all option in the slicer. Notice that if we want to select all here, we have to select each of them one after the other. But we can change that from formatting. So I'll ensure the slicer is selected. I'll come here, okay, and then I think I'll go to slicer settings. Where do we have that? I'm trying to think. Okay, slicer settings, selection, yeah. Okay. And yeah, show select all. I'll go ahead and click on turn it on and see if I come and click on select all now, everything will be selected. Now, if I turn it off, that select all is no longer there. I have to individually select each of the region. So I want to turn it on. Remember, what you are trying to do is you want to make your report as intuitive as possible. Okay. So that's what we do. We've turned on that. Now I want to add a matrix visual now. So I'll select the blank area and that's the matrix visual there. And I'll move it this way. Let me make this a bit smaller. And I want to drag it to fill the remainder of the page like that. Okay. And I want to add the date and fiscal hierarchy to the rows of the matrix. So this time I'm not adding the date, I'm adding the hierarchy. And how would you know the hierarchy? You will see a sign next to it. So I'll go ahead and drag this one into the Rosewell, and it creates a hierarchy for us right there. So that's the hierarchy there. And then want to add some other things to the values. So I'll come to values here, okay? And I want to add orders. For example, in sales, I want to add orders to the value. Okay, see, we now have orders. I want to add sales there as well. See, we now have sales. I want to add costs there. See, cost there. See, we now have costs. I want to add profit. We have profit. And then I want to also add profit margin. Okay, so we see all of those things available there. Okay, so we can do a lot of things here, but we are almost out of time. Now, there's something I want to show you that I'm not sure we have all been taking advantage of. And that is here, we have the link to what we've discussed here. Now, if you are signed in with your Microsoft account, you can actually go and see this same exercise and the lab pre-created for you here. Okay, there's an exercise called design a report. So I'm going to click on it and it takes you to this page. Okay, so if you come and click on launch lab, it's going to create a lab environment for you. And I'll go ahead and click on start lab, and it builds a lab environment. And that lab environment is going to allow you to demonstrate every single thing that I have demonstrated for you exactly the same way. I want to quickly point out that I've only done that lab halfway, and that is deliberate. One reason is we have just a limited amount of time. The other reason is to allow you to use part of what I've discussed with you to try to create it for yourself and complete the lab. So once the lab is fully built, I'm going to show you what you need to do. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, if we go back to this first page here, sorry, let me just go back all the way. Yeah, if you go back to this page here, this is a detail of all of the things we've talked about. It also gives you a knowledge check, basically a set of questions that's going to be prompting you. Well, the knowledge check is not okay, it's launching now. That's going to be prompting you with questions based on what we have discussed. And if you finish that, it allows you to do a summary. And then, of course, if you complete it, it gives you a badge. Okay, so that is also important. And again, another thing you want to see here is, because I've gone through all of this, I actually read through it before we had the class. It gives me a tick right here. So if I finish the knowledge check and the summary, it actually gives me a badge, okay, which I can go and post on my LinkedIn profile and all of that kind of thing, if things like that appeal to you. Okay, so here, of course, I've launched the lab before, so it gives me a launch error, but this is what the lab will look like. Now, the lab is going to give you a screen that looks like this. It gives you the instructions on the left. It gives you the set of credentials that you use to sign in. Okay, and you just want to follow the instructions. These are the instructions. Okay, these are the instructions that you can follow as you are going through it. You want to be checking and all of that. And once you are done, you go ahead and end the lab and mark the lab as complete. Okay. So, any question before we stop? Or in fact, I should just end the stream. Thank you very much for your time and see you in the next class.
Why